Hello there everyone, welcome, I'm Susavile and today I'll be reviewing the Kingdom of Dale for 3rd Age Divide and Conquer. In terms of the early position and the goals, Dale starts out with 4 cities and no castles actually. You will have to earn your first castles, even though they are pretty much available right off, because you will have to conquer at least 2 castles just to proceed with your game. In terms of the settlements themselves that you begin with, you begin with 2 very good ones, Dale and Asgaroth, because both are huge cities and will provide you with a lot of income as well as options in terms of the buildings. Now, the enemies that you will have to defeat, the Easterlings of Rune and the Shadow of Mirkwood. Now, this poses as a problem. You will have to expand both into Rune lands, and you will also have to expand into Dol Guldur lands. So, you'll have to choose early on which of the enemies you're going to have to fight with. You will probably as well have a good time with the dwarves, so you won't have to deal with them pretty much. Now, in terms of your diplomacy as well, you will have 4 allies in the beginning, so no problems at all on those fronts, and you only begin with Rune as enemies. So I would, if I was you, I would actually concentrate on taking out Rune first, before they can become too powerful, and then concentrate on Dol Guldur. Of course, you can go otherwise and try to rush Dol Guldur. Do it at your own risk. Just make sure that you use at least some spies to make sure that Rune doesn't overexpand. In terms of the initial conquests, there are many rebel settlements and especially, as I said, very needed castles. And overall, it will be a medium to long campaign, since most of the time will be spent on the early game preparing for the main engagement with Rune, and as soon as Rune is destroyed, then you will have all the weapons that you need to crush any other opposition. In terms of units, guys, Dale actually has a good balanced mix of units, both light, medium, and elite, with all unit types around. They mostly have, actually, they have one spearman, one initial spearman, then one medium spearman, then one heavy spearman. They also have one light, medium, and heavy archer. And the same thing goes for the cavalry, so pretty much all around very good at all times or at all periods in the game. They will have a good addition in the Dalesmen because they're effective against armor, and the Barding Hird, which are pretty much their upgrade in terms of the effectiveness against armor. In terms of what units will be available both in cities and castles, we will review it in a short time, but most of the units are available through both cities and castles, so you'll be able to pretty much replenish everything that you need. I would like to send a special note that all the archers above the Dalian Longbowmen, can use sharpened stakes. Continuing with our analysis of the units of Dale, pretty much the good stuff about Dale is that they only need the town level to access most of the units that you'll use both in the early and the medium to late game. So Dale Cavalry and the Earls will be in order in everything. As you can see, the upkeep is recruitment cost is really high for Earls, but of course they will make it worthwhile. In terms of other units, such as the infantry units, you'll have both the Dalian Rivermen and the Dalian Swordsmen. These are excellent swordsmen. They'll form the backbone of your armies. Pretty much, I think they are like the Gondor militia. They do their job pretty well on holding on the line, especially in the early to mid game. Now, in terms, one thing that I would like to point out is that most units are available on both sides or on both the cities and castles, as I have said previously, so you won't have any problems replenishing any of the units that you've sent. Even in terms of the archers, as you can see, it doesn't change anything. Dalian Longbowmen and Athal Rangers are available both in cities and castles. There's a special note for the Dalian Woodsmen, who are on the lumber camp, so you will be able to have the lumber camp after the hunting camp, and have the Dalian woodsman there. Additionally, you will also have, through the food production, 3 units: one archer, one spearman, uh, I'm sorry, one cavalry unit, one spearman, and the axemen, or the dalesmen in this case, who are also effective against armor. So pretty much by trying to get a good economy, you will also have enough units to defend yourselves. That is actually one of the best situations here of Dale, and it was changed actually for this mod, so there are more buildings providing more types of units. Also, the castle will additionally have extra units, but for now you won't have any castle, so I cannot show you for this moment. In terms of the initial army and the late army, you will have just about the same types of units, and then you'll have an upgrade for each type of unit. Pretty basic stuff. Upkeep is rather an average upkeep, but you will be able to support a decent sized army early on due to your finances as well, since most of the upkeep is below the 200 mark, Daily and Swordsman being an exception on this regard, and the Athala Rangers, which are already a medium unit, are also an exception in that regard. Pretty much overall, in terms of compositions, you will have a good deal of archers. The archer forces work really well on with Dale, and with some light or medium troops and any cavalry that you can find, you will be able to rush, ruin, and crush them in no time. In terms of buildings, guys, Dale actually has some good stuff, and I'll explain why. Because they have the best settlements, Dale and Esgaroth, who are both pretty large cities, so in terms of finances, they will be very good overall. These two cities will boost your income, especially. They don't have any particular buildings, let's say, but the access to early ports will be fundamental in the long term. The early ports will provide us with some good trade. In terms of cost and time spent on the buildings, I would say that is very good, especially because most buildings that produce units are fairly fast to acquire, and even the fact that you can have a lot of units with just a couple of buildings, such as the hunting camp and the communal farming, which will always build for trade and for income, will help out in the grand scheme of things. Also, the Dale actually has a great relation in terms of city to castle ratio, because most of the units that you can produce on cities can actually be produced as well on the castle. So therefore you will have a lot of chances to replenish your units even as you are expanding. Agents will also be required in any Dale campaign, actually, but I would point out that actually spies will be more important than diplomats or even assassins. That is just because of the amount of terrain that you have to cover. Everything from here up till here will have to be covered by spies, just to make sure that you don't get any surprises. I would recommend using your first spy to take a shot at Rune and check out how they are doing, and then build up a new spy to just check out Mordor or even Dol Guldur. At least 2 will be required. In terms of diplomats, of course, you will require at least 2 of them. One will go into this direction in contact with all the orcs and elves, and the other one will go south into the lands of Gondor, Rohan, and Mordor, of course. As for assassins, you can actually use them quite effectively, because assassins will be able to kill the generals, and Rune, especially, does rely a lot on their generals for their defense and attack. So managing to kill at least one of their generals will always be a great victory. let's overview what we and review what we have been talking about Dale. On this regard, I would say that the strongest points of them are the great balance of troops overall that you have, and their great position, because all that you have to do is to go in one direction. That also brings us to one of the things that I consider the weakest point. In order to not suffer too much from corruption, you will always have to change your capital at one point in the game. There are several factions where that is not required, but with Dale I would strongly recommend it. Generals, I would say that they have a couple of good ones, or possible good ones, but you will require to send at least 2 or 3 initially everywhere, and to fight every single battle in the beginning, which points out, just to level them up, which points out to the second weak point, which is a rather slow start that you'll have to do. In terms of building in unit synergy or rush or tech options, I would say that they are great synergies overall. Many units from different buildings, as I've said, such as the communal farming, which produces 3 units, and the hunting camp, which also produces woodsmen and such. You'll have plenty of opportunities to increase both income and gather some new troops, which is good. You can also be rushing initially very well, because you have 2 great cities to do so. In terms of time to victory, it's a long time to victory. You will have to destroy 2 factions. Both are not very easy to destroy, and you will have to conquer a couple of settlements that will, for instance, like Lest and Mistrand, which are kind of like here. So you'll always, as you can see, you will have to destroy the Eastern capital right there. You actually have knowledge of that initially. They have not a lot of paths to victory. I would say mostly 2. You can choose to take on Dol Guldur right here initially. I wouldn't recommend it, since that might cause Rune to grow too much, but you can choose that one, of course. Overall, it's a great faction to start with. Great unit balance, can focus easily on one foe at a time, and the allies nearby will certainly assist when required. I think you should give this one a shot almost right away once you get the mod, if you're new at this one. Cheers, guys!